can all see the slides. Are the slides visible to everyone? Namrata, could you just confirm if the slides are visible?
Yes, absolutely. In case anyone is having any issues, please type in the chat window.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Namrata, for the introduction. And it's a pleasure to be able to conduct this webinar on this really very important and very relevant topic of responsive parenting. Well, we have all gotten together today for these purposes. We all want to be equipped to raise children who are happy, who have positive outlook on life, who are resilient, they can face challenges and adversities, and also kids who are able to enjoy life and relationships. Also, maybe I will touch upon a little bit on how to get off from the autopilot and to be able to create a conscious vision for our children and our families. Now, before I embark on the responsive parenting, I would touch upon two very important tenets of neuroscience in a very, very simple language. All right. So, the person who we are, the people who we become, is a function of our experiences. So, our experiences determine our brain development. So, in the simplest of terms, when we talk about parenting, there are two things that are very important: the connections in our children's brain, and the second, the hormones or the neurotransmitters in our children's brain. Now, what this slide is showing you, we are all born with 200 billion neurons. It's a standard thing, it's constant all across, right? Every human being is born with 200 billion neurons. So, how do we differ from each other? How do we think differently? How our personalities are different? They are different because the neurons are connected in a different way. There are different networks. So, networks are what are important. We need to create right networks in our children's brains. That's super important. Networks determine who we are. As parents, do we have control over the kind of networks that we can create in our children's brains? Yes, we have control over that by enabling the right kind of experiences. This is the first very, very basic thing that I want you all to understand, that it is a tremendous power that we can control the network. Second important tenet of parenting neurosciences, that we all have these neurotransmitters flooding our brains all the time. Now, these neurotransmitters could be very good. They can make us feel super, joyful, optimistic, happy, ambitious, And at the same time, some of these bad neurotransmitters can make us feel angry, irritated, agitated, hopeless, depressed, and all those bad things. Now, we want to ensure that our children's brains are at all times flooded with good neurotransmitters. Is it in our hands? Yes, it is to a large extent. Responsive parenting is based on these two basic principles. I would like to recap these two important points before I move ahead. The first one is networks in the brain are important. Second, the neurotransmitters in the brain are important. Both can be influenced by children's experiences. And as parents and as caregivers, we can influence, we can create those beautiful experiences, enriching experiences that can then empower our children and help proper brain development. Now, when we talk about experiences, let's just reflect. How have over the years the experiences changed? So when we were children, let's say 20 years back or even farther back, children's chances of growing up with both parents was very high, 90 to 100%, because divorce rates were very low. Parents spent considerably less time at work, around 40 hours work week we used to have. Mothers usually were stay-at-home moms. They were around children, they were focused on children at all times. Family rituals were commonplace. Family dinners, family gatherings were a norm. There was a lot of trust between neighbors. So usually, if I recall my childhood, I also spent a lot of time with my neighbors. We were all in touch with our extended families, and there was virtually no technology. If I go back to my childhood, TV was there. Yes, it was only for a couple of hours in the evening, maybe. All right. So we had, as children, a lot of opportunity to go out and engage in free, imaginative, creative play. All right. So remember, I think women, all of us here are, do you recall playing Ghar Ghar? Lot of imaginative play, lot of role play happening. Um, doctor, or a student teacher, or even Kho, Stapu. We did not require a lot of expensive toys or a lot of resources or gadgets, so and we were very happy and joyful, and our days were fairly unstructured. Still, we got everything done. So this was the life of children, or the experiences of children. If you look at, there was a lot of human interaction. We were surrounded by people. There were social gatherings. There were ceremonies that we used to attend. How has it changed? Let's look at the scenario today. So the children's chances of growing up with both parents has considerably gone down. It is 60%. This is a Nelson survey data that was done in 2017. This data that I am sharing with you. Divorce rates have gone high, and there are chances that they'll go even higher. All right. Then parents spend a lot of time at work. So the working hours in a week are 70 to 80. Moms have started going out. 75% women are working, which is a very positive trend, but then it also has had a significant impact on the way children are brought up. Family rituals, now you see, they are spending 5.6 hours doing homework, which is less than an hour a week, a day. Extended families living further apart. We hardly know our neighbors because we are all so busy. We meet each other probably only on special occasions. We don't interact on everyday basis. There is a lack of trust because we don't know each other. So you see, human interaction or the responsiveness in the environment has gone down. It's good, it's bad. We will examine that. But who is then raising our kids? We are at work. We don't know our neighbors. Usually grandparents are far away. All right. Apart from school, what else? It's technology. It's technology that is raising our kids. So the research says that children are spending in a week 21 hours with screen, and there are a variety of options available for them. There is TV, there is iPad, mobile phones, video game consoles, and there's so many. We probably social media. There's so many ways that they are addicted to screens, and that leaves them no time for social interactions and even for free and imaginative play. So again, to summarize these two slides, human interaction and responsiveness has decreased in children's environment, and free and imaginative play has decreased. Is that good or is that bad? You will see that it's only human interactions, it's only human responses that can enable the brain development. Technology cannot. Researches are on, but no conclusive finding has been that technology in any way enriches children. There is no research that conclusively proves that. But it is a well-established fact, both in animal studies as well as human studies, that it's only in the company of humans that humans thrive. On that basis, this approach of responsive parenting has been formulated, So now let's look at the elements of responsive caregiving. There are 4 elements that I would be talking to you about. First is quality and quantity of time spent with your children. Second, free play and new experiences. Third, consistency and routines. Fourth is discipline. Let's look at the first one. quality and quantity of time spent with your child. This is a topic that raises a lot of anxiety. So I conduct a lot of sessions for the parents in corporates. And since there is a dearth of time, there's a paucity of time, some of these people are very, very busy. They meet their children typically for a couple of hours in the evening, and then it's bedtime. So this is the question that is most frequently asked question, that what is important, Himani? Is it quality? Is it quantity? How do we balance? So, there are no shortcuts to it. Both quality as well as quantity is important. Children want to have responsive caregivers around. It is important for their brain development. If not, parents, then there has to be a responsive caregiver around. I'm not saying that it's always parents who have to be taking care of all this, and that is why probably in earlier times it was said that it takes a village to raise a child, because we have to involve more people in our children's lives. They could be teachers, they could be grandparents, they could be trusted relatives and neighbors, because in today's busy life it's not really possible for two people to be taking care of everything. But why is it important? Now, I would want really, this is one of my very favorite pictures. I love this picture. What do you see in this picture? What I see is that it's a moment of really, connect, a very warm connect between a mom and her daughter. They are like genuinely like connected with each other. What is this? It's a very simple thing. It happens in everyday lives, every day. What is it enabling? How is it helping the child? And if we look at scientific data, you know what is happening right now? Right now, in this little girl's brain, a lot of feel good hormones are being released, a lot of neurotransmitters are released. And I would want you to familiarize yourself with the names of a couple of feel good hormones. So there are opioids and oxytocin. These two hormones, if your brain is flooded with these two good hormones, you are an optimistic person, you're a joyful, you feel love, you feel happiness, you feel a drive and a motivation. So these two hormones are feel good hormones. And whenever there is this kind of a genuine warm connect between the parent and the child, your child's brain is flooded with all these feel good hormones. So if you can imagine, if you can make it happen multiple times in a day, so your child is always flooded with feel good hormones. And if it is happening again and again and again, you remember in the slides in the very beginning, I talked about how networks are formed. So when you do the same thing over and over again, every single day, then the networks are formed. And when these networks are grounded in place, these hormones will be released every day in your child's brain. And just by this very simple practice of spending time with your children, quality time with your children, connecting with them, can enable feel good hormones, can change the biochemistry of your child. So I'm just quoting a very beautiful statement from a parenting book. To experience a warm world inside your head depends very much on those special one-to-one moments with your parents. Now you would ask, how do you take out that time? So simple things like reading together at night, cuddling together, bedtime stories, even if, and this is not only with the young children, but even teenagers enjoy this. So even listening deeply to their concerns, everything is an opportunity for one-on-one connect. So your takeaway should be from this sharing is that we have to create special one-on-one moments of connection with our children if we want them to be happy and secure individuals. Now, something of the similar on the similar lines, serve and return interactions. Serve and return interactions is basically the other term for responsiveness. I will share an incident with you which happened some time back, but I just can't seem to forget it. I used to go for a morning walk, and I noticed, I think I did share this on my Facebook page as well, There's this 4-year child who's very naughty, very cute, and he's doing all sorts of antics to get the attention of his mother. But mother is very busy talking on the mobile. Maybe she was talking really something very important, but the child was trying to get mother's attention. And after a while, I kept noticing the child, he just gave up. He just gave up, and that is something very sad as far as the child is concerned and as far as brain development is concerned. So there are numerous studies that say that when the child initiates an interaction to get your attention, please respond. When child serve, you return. As in the game of tennis, one player serves, the other player returns the serve, and that's how the game continues. These are called, in the scientific language, serve and return interactions. So for example, in the first picture, in this picture, you can see the child is pointing out to something that he's feeling curious about. And you see the teacher or the mother, she also sort of validates and responds. Similarly, you can see this adult giving undivided attention to what the child is saying. And the child is serving, the adult is responding, and then you have to name that serve. For example, yes, that is a red pepper, that is a yellow pepper. And this interaction, back and forth interaction, continues till the child loses interest or is engaged elsewhere. So these kind of interactions are called serve and return interactions, and they are also crucial for the child's brain development. Children who become emotionally intelligent, children who understand human emotions, children who have empathy are the children who in their childhood have experienced plenty of serve and return interactions. Very important for children to become emotionally intelligent, that the caregivers in the life engage in serve and return interactions. Another very important thing is when you make crucial decisions like whether you want to leave your child in the daycare center, just question yourself whether the child would be receiving serve and return interactions. What is the teacher to pupil ratio there? So all of these things are very important. If you can't do it, ensure that you have an adult in your child's life who is capable of giving the child the response that he or she deserves. Another very important, these are very basic things that were sort of, implicit, that used to happen on their own. But in today's lifestyle, because of us all being very busy, somewhere these are getting lost, and it's very important to go over them once again. Physical affection. So antidote to separation anxiety, great mood enhancer, fewer problem with anger and aggression, strengthens immune system, effect on brain stress regulating system. Again, when you show physical affection frequently, every day, one thing that happens is child becomes a very secure human being because of the neural connections, and also because of the physical affection, the neurotransmitters get released, which again strengthens the biochemistry of the brain. And there have been numerous longitudinal studies over the years that prove that children whose parents have spent good quality and quantity time with them are better equipped to handle stress and face challenges in the later years. Now,
so Dr.
All right.
I'm just wondering, should we just take a pause here and check if there are any questions at this point?
Sure, Namrata. Definitely. Let's do that.
So anyone would like to ask any question based on what has been shared so far, or anything on your mind which we might cover today? Would you like to raise your hand or type it in the chat so we can unmute you? You can also choose to unmute yourself. Hopefully you're not in a very noisy background because this webinar is being recorded.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Okay, Prachi raised her hand. Prachi, I think you're in a fairly noisy background. Is it okay for you to type your question in the chat window? Are you able to see the chat window? You can just look at the controls and type it. Okay, and while Prachi is looking for that, anyone else would like to ask something? Okay. All right. I'm wondering if we can try and unmute Prachi once again and see if Prachi you'd like to ask the question.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Prachi, please go ahead.
Yeah, ma'am. Actually, I'm giving full attention to my child. I'm giving physical affection also, and due to that physical affection, my child is becoming very aggressive, matlab day by day. So
All right.
yeah,
Anything else? All right. So,
no,
Prachi, what makes you think that he is becoming aggressive due to physical affection?
actually, if I'm not loving him for a while, like any child coming from outside and he's playing, and I'm giving little bit of attention to him, he start become matlab very angry, start throwing the toys, start matlab like everything what can distract my attention towards that child to him.
All right. All right. So, Prachi, when we will come to, we will also be talking about how to discipline children. But I can assure you one thing, that whatever aggression issues that you are seeing or insecurity that the child is having is not because of the physical affection. It may be due to other reasons. And when I will talk about discipline, probably that would be an opportunity for you to reflect that if any of this has other triggers. But physical affection, you believe me, is not the reason for that.
Okay, fine, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
All
Yeah,
right.
there don't seem to be any other questions. I guess we can proceed.
All right. Thanks, Namrata. Thanks, Prachi. Um, if your question doesn't get answered, then you may then probably just ping it in the chat box. I will be reminded of to address it. All right. Now, moving on to another very important aspect of responsive environment for children and creating enriching experiences is the quality of and the kind of play that they experience. Um, before I discuss the play, you must have all have you know met a person, or there's a person in your life or at workplace who's very sunshiny, who lights up the entire place. And if he or she doesn't turn up for work, let's say, you feel sad. Oh my God, it doesn't feel good today at work. So somebody who is very joyful, very happy, has solutions to all the problems, and is in generally, has a very high energy. So these people are said to have a good seeking system. In scientific language, it's called they have a good seeking system. They have high curiosity, high energy levels, they can take risks, they can find solutions to the problems. So this is so the what they have, which other people probably don't have as much, is the abundance of hormones called dopamine and opioids. The opioids in combination with dopamine make somebody a very, very high energy and a vibrant person, willing to take risks and challenges and overcome problems. Seeking system is something that enables us to experience life to the full, to open new doorways, to be able to bounce off the challenges, all of that. And we all want our children to be like that. So that is where free play, creative play, and new experiences come in. So now you can see this very interesting picture where all these children probably are going to sit on the broom and fly to the moon. I don't know what they're planning, but they're playing with a broom, all right? And they probably have a story which they are enacting. And I talked about Ghar Ghar that we used to play, or Doctor Doctor. So these are the kind of games that do not require a lot of resources, but they do require a lot of creativity and imagination, and a lot of probably also problem solving. So these kind of play are very important for children to engage in for the development of their higher brain. their logical thinking brain, and also for these hormones that drive motivation, inquisitiveness, curiosity to be released. You see, these two boys are just doing their regular rough and tumble, the kind of games that dads and boys usually play, or two brothers usually play. Rough and tumble, girls don't usually like to engage in, being a little more logical in the younger age as compared to boys. The boys do these things, and it's important for their physical growth. And it's also shown very, very conclusively by the research that the children who don't engage in free play, in rough and tumble physical play, they manifest the symptoms of ADHD. And I think it's very important for teachers to take note of that, because these days we are diagnosing children left and right. What is it? So we need to go into the children's history and their routines, that how are they spending their days. If there is a lack of physical play and free play, then this is what may manifest as other disorders. All right. So do's and don'ts about play is that, see, these days what is happening is, if you go through the don'ts, children are allowed to spend long periods bored and understimulated sometimes. For example, they're expected to sit quietly through adult meals. Sometimes, when we are traveling, they're expected to be quietly play on their iPads or mobile phones on journeys. Sometimes screen is their main source of recreation. And also there is a new trend of scheduling children's days. So a child after coming back from school has to go for the soccer classes and piano classes and different other kinds of classes, and then come back and do the homework, and then it starts very, very early. And this is something that is detrimental. You have to allow an unscheduled free time in children's schedules, where they can just be themselves, when they can engage in whatever kind of play they want to other than screen. And you have to encourage, and sometimes you have to participate, because children have, it seems, forgotten to play. So sometimes you have to show the way, you have to get in, and you have to take them for trips, you have to allow new experiences. Don't be very critical. There are mothers, so as long as children are quiet, they are okay, but as soon as they start making noise or they start making a mess, so the mothers don't like it. And I'm also guilty of that. But I think information and knowledge is power, and that is where we need to take mindful decision as to where we are hindering our own children's brain development. This is very crucial to happen, because this will lead them to become happy, ambitious, resourceful, and resilient individuals. So stop overscheduling children's days and allow them some freedom to play the way they want to. As I said, it activates seeking system. Children learn to engage with people and places. They walk through open doors, find energy to open the new ones, love of knowledge, and the will to learn. The third important element is consistency. Namrata, would we like to ask questions about this before moving on to the third element?
Yeah, so there is a question that has been asked by Pooja on the chat window, that it's similar to what the previous question was by Prachi, that Pooja says her child is entering teenage, is so loved and pampered, but is becoming aggressive day by day and doesn't have patience and has mood swings.
All right. All right. So I would also want you to reflect upon what kind of schedule he has. How much time is the child spending with the screen? Does he have social lives? It's very important for teenagers to have a healthy, peer interaction. And with teenagers, things are a little bit more complex. You would have to talk to him, listen to him, spend some time, maybe go on walks with him. You might discover some underlying issues. So love and pampering, I do not know what you're calling pampering, but physical affection and talking to children isn't pampering. I am not advocating pampering. I am saying that, be responsive to children, let them be children, be there when they need you, and let them know that you love them. That's not pampering. Listen to them. So since this child is probably a tween, you need to spend some time talking and listening to him to figure out where the issues are coming from. And consistency and boundaries are also very important. So I'm going to be talking about them as well a little later. Have you tried talking to him about what's happening in his life? What is he worried about? Why is he behaving the way he is behaving? Have you ever tried to have a conversation with him?
Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Yes, I had tried doing it because, he has some health issues as well. So maybe we think he's taking too much of medicines. That is the reason for his mood swings.
Could be.
And, he doesn't get good quality time to play outside. Because
of his health?
Of his health, and now he's, when he takes holidays from school just because of his health. So he's not able to complete his work. So I discussed with him. Sometimes, I don't know why he tells me that, he's a very brilliant child actually. But just the reason he's not able to cope up with the classwork, and also he's become very timid, very silent. I speak to him, he opens up a bit, but sometimes I'm not able to give time to him. That's the reason actually.
How old is he?
He's 12.
He's 12?
Yes.
All right. So yes, I think the solution would be to talk to him and to listen more than you prescribe something. You just listen to him for, let's say, maybe a week, resist talking and ask him what's going on. Listen very carefully and try to understand what's going on with him. Take very good care of his health, because sometimes, this irritability also comes from ill health and not being able to cope with his schoolwork. Are you in touch with his teachers?
Yes, all are so helpful. That's the reason he's able to cope up with the pending work, the assessments and everything. So he's getting good support from the school. I'm very much satisfied with that.
So his health could be an underlying issues, and I think these I cannot just right away answer these. I think they need some more reflection and more in-depth analysis of what may be happening with him, and a conversation with the child is due. So try talking to him, then we can get back in touch to understand better.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions anybody would like to ask, or should we move ahead? Okay, I think we can go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Namrata. All right. So third tenet of responsive caregiving is consistency. So consistency, as opposed to just last element, I was talking about giving children space and freedom to be themselves. Here I'm saying that it's very important also to enforce certain routines and setting limits, because again, as I said, that in order for proper networks to be created in the child's brain, it's important that routines are there, limits and boundaries are there, because again, there is a higher brain, and so there is an emotional brain and there is a logical brain. The simplest way I can explain it to you is, for the development of a logical brain or the higher brain, it's very important that children learn to manage themselves. Children know that this is what the time for me to get up, this is the time for me to get ready for the school, this is when I come back from the school, I need to wash my hands and have my lunch, and then I take a nap, whatever. So you have to, in the early childhood, enforce routines, limits and boundaries. And once the child is, let's say, 10, 11, the child would be able to very much, take care of his or her own routines, because by now it has become a wired thing in the brain. It has become a network, and children will be able to manage themselves. So now, as a counselor also, many a times we see children who are very, very dysregulated, children who are not able to manage themselves. They are not able to, follow boundaries and limits. And very often we see that. One example that I would like to specially bring up here was, in my experience, was a child. So regularity and predictability are two very important aspects of consistency. So for example, there was certain times this child, nobody would come to pick him up at the bus stop. Certain days there were his grandparents or somebody would come, a neighbor would come to pick him up. Certain days there was nobody. So as soon as it was the time for dispersal, you could see the anxiety on the child's face, because a counselor used to be with him during the last 15 minutes of the school. So she noticed that so he was very anxious whether somebody would come to pick me up from my bus stop or not. If at all somebody is coming, who that person would be. So, this builds insecurity. So we have to make sure that children have a predictable routine. It gives children structure. It makes children feel safe. And it also helps their higher brain to grow and develop the way it should. All right. So, for example, orderliness. So they have to know that, okay, this is my study corner. This is where my stationery and my books are kept. This is where I come to finish my work. This is the time. This is where my pencil, my eraser is. So when the children have structure, order, predictability, and routines in their life, it helps them become better managed. And, and this is something that is obvious. But when we don't realize the importance of the structure during the early childhood, sometimes during the teenage, these children become aggressive and mismanaged, and dysregulation later in life. All right. So predictability minimizes stress. So when children know, okay, all right, I am taken care of. When I go home, I'll get my lunch. All right. If it is something that is set in a routine, the child can divert his mental attention somewhere else in doing a more productive work rather than worrying about his or her well-being and safety. Repetition reinforces brain connection. Knowing what to expect builds confidence and competence, and it encourages self-regulation, as I said. All right. So this was consistency. Anybody has any question regarding the routines and the importance of predictability in life? So in the last one, we talked about travel, we talked about giving them new experiences, but at the same time, it's very important to have routines and limits.
So I'm wondering at this point if we can launch a poll and ask people what topics they might be interested in for future webinars before we move ahead.
Sure. Absolutely, Namita, please.
All right. So I'm just going to do that. If everyone can view the poll, I'll request all of you to please choose the topics that you would find useful for future webinars. Are you all able to see the poll? Okay, great. I am seeing one person has voted. There is a list of topics out here which will help us organize the webinars based on your interests and areas that you're working with. I can see digital well-being is really out there. And then we have all about discipline and trying times. Okay, we still have more responses coming in. Social anxiety as well. Okay, digital well-being and all about discipline seems to top the list. I think there are a few more of us who haven't responded yet, so please go ahead and do that. Social anxiety, yeah. It would be interesting to see how some of these topics are related to the use of gadgets, I guess. What's the correlation? All right, so we are going to end the poll now. In case any of you haven't voted yet, please go ahead and choose the topic that you are interested in. and we'll be able to organize webinars based on that. Okay, so we'll just end the poll for now and continue our session. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, Namrata. All right. So discipline is something that's very, can you all view me? All right. Namrata, can they all see me, right? Because I wanted to take them through a hand model in which I would have to use my hand.
Yes, your video is visible. In case it
Oh.
is not visible to anybody, please let us know.
All right. Great. Great. Thanks. Fine. So, discipline is something where a lot of questions are usually asked about it. Just a second, please. All right.
Yeah, I was just showing the poll results.
All right. Okay. Yeah, so I can see that digital well-being is something that's really required. A lot of people feel strongly about it. All right, let's continue with discipline. So, because, you know, when we were getting ready for this webinar, we aimed it up till the age group 10, 0 to 10. So discipline in the very young kids, I will talk about right now. So you see, we are talking from the brain perspective. So if you can look at my palm here, my hand. So if I can give you a very simplistic model of brain using my hand, it'll be like the palm, this part of my hand is my emotional brain, right? And if I fold my fingers over my thumb, this is my logical brain, all right? So my emotional brain and my logical brain. My fingers are here, my logical, higher order thinking brain, and here is my brain that is emotional. So when children are very, very young, what happens is that their emotional brain is already developed. The emotional brain, we are born with good solid emotions in place, all right? But logical brain, higher order brain, this part takes time to develop, and it's somewhere in most individuals, the maturation gets completed by the age of 23 to 24. I mean, around that time when you are able to establish yourself as an individual in the world. So what happens is that children operate from here because their higher brain is not still developed. So they function from their emotional brain. All right. So when children misbehave, usually they are acting emotionally. All right. So when you try to justify or control them using reason or logic, they are not able to understand. They're not able to understand because their higher order brain isn't still working very well. They're thinking through their emotions, and that continues for a very long time. Children are driven by emotions and feelings, right? Now, it could differ from individual to individual, but that is the thumb rule that it takes a lot of time for the higher order brain to develop. So you need an emotionally strong parent who is clearly in charge. All right. Children can throw tantrums. They can be unreasonable. And similarly, with the very, very young children, what happens is that when they're hungry, instead of saying, I am hungry, give me food, they would throw a tantrum. If they are sleepy, rather than going to sleep, they will throw a tantrum. Why? Because they can't logic and reason. They just don't feel right. And that isn't right for them. And so they throw a tantrum. So you have to first rule out, my child is behaving badly. Is it because there is a physiological need that is unmet? Is the child hungry? Is the child thirsty? Is the child wet? If in the case child is very young, or child needs attention, what is it? What is the need that's not fulfilled, right? So you can't go to reprimand, logic, reason with the child when the child needs something. So first thing that I would recommend with young children up till the age of 5, even 6 sometimes, to first figure out why is there a physiological need that is not met? Is the child? So then after you figure that out, then you look at the attention, all right? The attention. Sometimes children just need attention. They just want you to hold them, hug them, again, in a very young child. Sometimes they just want you to understand them. I just usually like to give this instance. So there is a 4-year-old who goes in a shop and he likes certain shoes and he wants those shoes, but those shoes are not available in this child's size. And the child throws a tantrum. All right. Then the parent is trying very best to justify to the child that, you know, we'll buy something else. You see, this shoe is not available in your size. But child's logical brain isn't developed as yet. So the child is thinking emotionally. He liked something, he didn't like it, and so his emotions are all over the place. He's going to throw a tantrum. So what an emotionally intelligent parent, a parent who's aware of the brain principles, would do? You get down to the child's level, you make an eye contact, and you tell the child, I understand. I know how you feel. You know, one time I also didn't get the shoes of my liking and I really, really felt bad. And you hug the child and you console the child. For me, you know, the answer to most of the things would be understanding children and hugging, loving them. You know, that's the first step. After, if that doesn't work, then probably you need to think of something else. So you have to be very, very aware. Children are emotional. Children are emotional not because they want to, but it is what it's supposed to be, because their higher brains aren't developed as yet. Then it's not always that simple. You have to be in charge. If there is good behavior, you have to be emotional. If there is bad behavior on purpose, there is no reason for that, but the child is on purpose defiant, the child is on purpose trying to do something wrong, you will be very matter of fact and you will immediately put consequences in place. You know, if you're going to be emotional about bad behavior, you will get more bad behavior. If you're trying to emotionally blackmail the child that you're such a bad child and this, that, and you're going to go into extended conversation with the child about the bad behavior, you might get more bad behavior. So you have to be very matter of the fact and you have to put consequences in place. But first, be calm, be in control, establish boundaries, use physical soothing for young children, be emotional with good behavior, matter of fact with bad behavior, and make sure if it's a good behavior, rewards are given the same day. If it is bad behavior, consequences are awarded the same day. This is very, very brief account of discipline. It's a very, very big topic and very extensive topic, and there are a variety of different things that children can do. So I've covered extensively, I mean, I think these four briefly, not extensively. So to recapitulate the entire webinar, you have to remember that you can influence brain development and brain biochemistry by building one-on-one moments, by showing physical affection, by engaging in serve and return interactions with children, letting children play independently, creatively, understand need and accordingly discipline, be consistent and regular with them. I think that is it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I think we have more questions coming up. There's a question from Shivani on the chat who says that she has twins and she wants to know, how do I handle the competition between them?
Hi, Shivani. All right, it's a very interesting question. The sibling rivalry and sibling relationship is a very extensive topic in the brain module. I think you can encourage healthy competition, competition for good things, acknowledging when they are getting on, they are getting well, you know, along well with each other. You have to extensively praise that, celebrate that, award and reward that. On the same time, at the same time, when they're indulging in the disruptive behavior, you can give time in to both of them. How old are your twins? It's very important for me to know that, how old, before I give you any suggestions.
Shivani, I am unmuting you if you would like to. Okay, somebody's scribbling.
I could see that. That adds a lot of interest to to the slide. All right.
Yeah. Shivani, are you in a position to speak right now, or would you like to stay muted? I'm not sure. They are 7 years old, is what she's typing.
Yeah, so a lot of collaborative projects can be planned just to teach them and to role model to them how working together looks like, and then celebrating that. 7 years is a good age actually to teach them that value of working together. And again, when they both misbehave or not get along well with each other, you give them time in. See, time out is an outdated concept. I think many people go by time outs. Time in is when you just ask, 7 years old can answer those questions. That I mean, and you would teach them empathy. That now step into your sister's shoe and reflect. You know what. So we use a coach approach and ask them a lot of questions and to figure out that why are they behaving, what is the insecurity, and whenever. So as I said, acknowledging the times when they work together collaboratively and on purpose planning the projects or the things to do together.
Okay. Any other questions anyone would like to ask as we are approaching the end of our webinar time today? We have a few more minutes before we wrap up. Okay, so there's a question from Sukhbir saying that regarding discipline, what if parents are not disciplined or not have consistent routine, or one parent is flexible while the other is trying to discipline? Such a valid question. I think it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
true.
I know. And this usually happens, you know, that the parents are not on the same page. So I think this is important that parents be on the same page when it comes to disciplining children and, you know, role modeling. And a lot of it, you know, so I think very interesting, children do as they see. So the kind of behavior that you will model will be followed, no matter what you tell them or what you preach, but it's usually what you do that children follow. So it's a very valid point. I think it's important that you model the right behavior and discipline yourself first.
Excellent. Great. So, yeah, I think Tina is writing whenever meeting a new person, she takes a long time to talk or open up and just hides behind her parents. Her daughter is 4.5 years old.
Yeah, that's stranger anxiety, and that is valid, and that's all right. That is all right if she takes time to warm up to people. What you can do is that in your presence, you familiarize the child with the stranger, and in fact, it's a safe behavior. So the children who mingle too much with anybody is also not the right kind of behavior. You wouldn't even want to encourage that. If she is a little hesitant about meeting the strangers, it's all right. But in your presence, you can just ease the anxiety by introducing the child to the stranger, briefly, you know, facilitating the interaction between the two people. Once your child sees you comfortable with the stranger, she would ease out slowly. It'll take time, and that's all right. She's just 4.5.
Okay, and Prachi wants to know what is a good time for a child to sleep? Best time for a child to sleep.
See, how old is the child? See,
Okay.
when teenagers have a lot of projects, works to do, it even after 12, 13 as they grow, schoolwork, tuitions, lots of other factors come into play. But ideally, children should sleep by 8 p.m. as per me. That would also allow you some me time.
He's also 4.5 years old, she
Yeah,
says.
I think 8 p.m. is a good time to sleep for children.
Yeah. Okay. And I think it's the sleep is a very elaborate topic in
Yeah.
itself, I guess, which
Yes,
requires
absolutely.
more discussion.
And yeah, sleep and co-sleep. That is also one very, very, uh, you know, people want to know whether co-sleeping is all right, because in Western countries, you see people, you know, children sleeping right from the very early age, as when they're infants, in fact, they're sleeping separately from their parents, and whether that's healthy or not. So that's also something that a lot of people want to know about.
Hmm. Excellent. All right, so I think we're on the top of the hour. I definitely see comments saying that people found this webinar very valuable. I want to thank you so much for your time today. It was wonderful, and I'm really hoping we can continue this dialogue and pick up topics which are of interest to people. I'm sharing again the poll results which have come in. Through the poll on the topics that people are interested in for future sessions. So hopefully we'll all be in touch, and if all of you can please type your email IDs in the chat windows before you leave, so we can ensure that we are sending you information about future webinars. If you are anyways connected with me or Dr. Himani, that's fine. I guess we have you on our list. Otherwise, happy to add you. All right. So
All right.
thank you. Thank you everyone for your time. Thank you, Dr. Himani. We will be hopefully be able to retrieve the recording of this webinar and share it for those of us who were not able to attend it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Namrata, for facilitating and hosting me. And also thank you everybody who took time to participate and be here. We hope to stay connected with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Enjoy.